Callie is very as the same as Elena was in the Pursuit of Elena Bradford. Callie is very loyal to her family. She's very family centered, as many mountain people are centered on family. And so I make that into my Appalachian stories that they do have that strong family feel.
We'll talk about this and much more today. Welcome to a Writer's Day podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to a Writer's Day podcast. My name is Ruth Douthit, and I'm so happy to have you here with me today because I started this podcast for you, folks who love to listen to award-winning, best-selling authors talk about their novels, but also about what they've overcome to become published authors. It always inspires me and keeps me going on my writing journey. So welcome. And if you like what you hear, please consider subscribing or following me and leaving me a review. I'd love to know what you think of a Writer's Day podcast. And head over to my website, artbyruth.com, to sign up for my newsletter, where you will learn about my upcoming projects, my art projects, and my writing projects, and who I will be interviewing on my podcast. And when you sign up for my newsletter, just know that every month I give away a free book. Sometimes it's one of my books, so you can know my writing style, or sometimes they give away one of my podcast guests' books. I love doing that. And so sign up today at artbyruth.com to connect with me. Anne H. Gabhart. She is the best-selling author of so many novels, I think 50 novels, including The Song of Sourwood Mountain, In the Shadow of the River, and When the Meadow Blooms. She has such a faithful following of readers who adore her stories, and I am one. She and her husband live on a farm a mile from where she was born in rural Kentucky, and she often sets her stories there. She's here with me today to talk about her new book, The Pursuit of Elena Bradford. So you know the drill. Grab your favorite beverage, a comfortable chair, kick back and relax as we listen to Anne talk about her new book. I have the honor of talking with Anne Gabhart again today, and I think you've been on my podcast about 3 times now.
Oh, and it's always fun. Thank you for inviting me over.
Oh, my pleasure. It is always a joy to talk with you. Well, since we haven't spoken in a while, why didn't you catch us up? What have you been up to in 2025?
Well, the last couple of weeks, I've sort of hit a bump in the road. My husband actually had an accident, broke his arm, and messed up his elbow, and we spent 2 weeks in the hospital waiting for surgery. And now he is one-armed. So as you imagine, I'm doing a little nurse mating. But other than that, we've had a really good year, and spring is springing around here on the farm. So things are going good now that he's home. I've got a long road ahead of him getting that elbow to work again, but he'll get it done, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. That sounds so painful. Ouch.
It was pretty painful, I think, for him.
Poor guy.
He said a lot of ouches, in other words.
Yeah, and so he's got a cast?
Oh, he has a cast from his shoulder to his knuckles, so...
Ooh.
But luckily, it was his left arm, and he's right-handed, so...
Okay.
Of course, my dad used to say when somebody would say he was lucky he didn't get hurt worse or something, he'd say, well, if he'd been lucky, he wouldn't have got hurt at all.
That's a good saying. Oh,
True.
dear. Well, I'll be praying for him to get better. And I'll be praying for you because I know it's tough on the wife, isn't it?
It can be interesting, especially when you're trying to write a book.
Oh, dear. That's right. You've had deadlines in the midst of all that, didn't you?
I do. My book's coming out in May. I have a May deadline, and things just got really interesting there for a while. Still
Oh, dear.
is. That's great. I love having a book come out. It's always fun.
And so let's talk about this amazing new book, The Pursuit of Elena Bradford. And audience, I am looking at the cover. It's very lovely. I'm just, wow, amazed by the cover design. Beautiful. Why don't you tell us now a little bit about this story?
Story is a little different than some of my other stories. I say that every book. I guess maybe I'm the only one that thinks they're different, but uh, this one has a little more romance in it. It's sort of got a three-way romance that you're never sure exactly how it's going to end up. It has a little mystery, a little suspense. It has a lot of history about the Graham Springs Hotel, which is actually was a place here in Kentucky, not far over in the next county from where I live. It's a place where people went to take the waters when at that time in the early 1800s, they went to these places that had springs and they drank the spring water thinking it would help digestive problems, rheumatism, all kinds of different ailments. And my book is sort of seeing if it's going to cure Spencerhood. Since my
Ah,
character is not married, she's never really met the man that made her want to get married. That's the first line in the book. But when her father dies suddenly, they discover that he had taken out a lot of loans, and the family now is in financial struggle. They're in dire financial state. And Alina's mother decides that her daughter is the way to get out of this. They just need to get her to marry a wealthy gentleman. So they go to this resort area where Elena's mother is sure that there will be lots of available gentlemen that will be able to rescue them from their troubles.
okay, that's interesting. So she's pretty satisfied with their single life, but now she has to
Was
find a man, huh?
was before her father died. Once her father died, she's in the 1840s, in early 1800s. A woman didn't have a lot of ways to support herself. She
Mm.
pretty much had to depend on her male relatives to keep her, especially a socially prominent young lady. And she didn't worry about that before her father died. But once her father died, she could imagine having to find a spinster corner in some relative's house. And, that doesn't sound so good. But if she marries, of course, she wants to marry for love and not because she wants to have a rich husband. So
Yeah,
there's some complications there. And of course, there are always complications in books. That's what makes them readable.
that's true. And it mirrors life, right? Life is complicated.
It does. It does. Except in a book, you can make it come out with a happy ending, which I love happy endings.
Of course, and so do your readers. Well, so tell us about Graham Springs, Kentucky, and this hotel that you researched.
Well, I had actually researched a little bit about this hotel back when I wrote one of my Shaker books. In that book, I wanted to compare the simple life of the Shakers in their community, which wasn't all that far away. They're in the same community as Graham Springs was. And Graham Springs, of course, is over there with all the socially prominent people being pampered, taking baths with rose leaves in it. And I wanted to contrast that. But while I was researching Graham Springs, I was just really amazed by a lot of the things that I read, especially about the owner, who was Christopher Columbus Graham. He was an amazing man who lived to be 104 years old. He actually, they said he knew every important man there was to know between the 1700s and early 1800s. He was very influential, went to a college and became a doctor, believed in exercise and his spring water. So he built this beautiful resort and operated it for about, oh, I don't know, 40 years maybe, and had all the famous people come, and gentlemen and ladies came there to take the water. He was amazing story about him. And so I wanted to write more about him. And I do sort of have a sneak a little about him into the book as well.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. And he was quite the rifleman.
He was supposedly the best offhand rifle shooter in the in the whole country. They one time had a contest. They offered $10,000, which was a lot of money in the 1840s, if anybody would challenge him and win against him shooting offhand rifle, which nobody would even take the challenge. He was that good.
Wow. Now, springs are often, written about because they were very important back in the day. People did go to them because they thought they could get healthy. And so Graham Springs is quite a social hub in your story. So what made you want to set your story in that area? And then what kind of activities would people, engage in at these springs?
Well, they drank the water, which my character doesn't really tries not to drink the water because it does have a very different taste. The spring water has sort of a sulfur water taste a lot of times, and it's not very good. But she sort of avoided taking the water. She was an artist. She wanted to draw. She liked to draw roses and flowers and would like to have learned to draw portraits too. So she had her own way to do things. Uh, at the resort, which it was, they had a four-story hotel. They could take 1,000 guests at the time. Music was
Wow.
always playing. They had lots of walks through gardens that they could do. They had lawn bowling. They had badminton, which they called as something else at the time. They had indoor games. It was just a place where people could go and relax and then take the waters. But then at night, a lot of times they had balls where they danced, and because they always had more gentlemen than ladies, the women never had any lack of partners.
Hmm. I love that. Sounds like a fun resort life experience, ballroom dancing, long walks, a lot of activities. That sounds neat.
If you were rich enough to afford it, of course.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
true. Now, in your story, it seems like the message, the theme of healing runs through it. Elena wants to heal her family. She hopes that she can. But also Graham Springs, people went there to experience healing. Was that one of the many themes that you wanted readers to take away from this story?
is a good one that family loyalty was a lot of my thoughts of the story too. That Elena is prepared to make a match that may not be the one that she wants to make the most in order to help her family. Uh, she finds that duty to family and matters of the heart. You just, of course, the healing of her family is a good way to put that as well, since they were facing a dire situation, and her mother tells her that if they don't find a way out of it, they'll have to sell their house and everything will change for their family. So it was fortunate that she was able to go to this place where she did have a lot of opportunity to meet the proper gentleman. Unfortunately, she meets a few that are not on her mother's list, so that makes a complication.
Yeah. Now, back then, though, women didn't have a lot of opportunities, so marriage was definitely a way to protect themselves and their family. But in your story, The Pursuit of Elena Bradford, she's beautiful and she's young, but she ends up at Graham Springs without a chaperone. Now, that's kind of a big no-no back then, right?
Her mother's with her mother and her little sister, and it's a little different. They didn't have a gentleman chaperone, but her mother was there to chaperone for her. So we didn't have a brother to come with her, so she had to come with her mother, and that raised a few eyebrows, but it worked out.
Yeah, that's true. I could see it being a bit of a challenge for people to accept that. But as you said, that just makes the story more interesting when your character has to go against the social norms a little bit.
Well, her mother's also in mourning and she's wearing black, which is also not something that you might see that often at this hotel.
Mm.
But she uses her last money that Elena doesn't know where she gets to go to this resort in order to try this scheme to rescue her family.
And so the Pursuit of Elena Bradford releases in May. What day does it release on?
On May the 6th,
Wonderful, May 6th. And so it's available for pre-order right now.
it is, and it is at most internet sites. It also is available at Baker Bookhouse with some extras. You might get a bookmark and a signed book plate if they still have the supplies available, and a
Very.
great price.
Yes, and 40% off and free shipping. That's a great deal.
That's about as good as you can get.
Well,
So it's a
so
nice place to shop for any book, though, as far as that goes. Lots of
that,
good books at the site, as
that's
as
true.
as, as at many sites. I love books.
Definitely. Well, so what's coming next down the road for you?
Right now, I'm working on a book that's set back in the Kentucky Appalachian region. I have a new character, Callie Mae Bertram. She wants to learn to read, but she missed out on the opportunity to go to school when she was younger. She was about to get to start to school when she was 13, but then her mother died in childbirth, and Callie had to take over taking care of the baby that did live, and she had a younger brother, so she sort of became the mother in the house, even though she was very young. But that kept her from being able to go to school. The baby, without her mother, was sort of a sickly little baby at the beginning. So she was very trapped, but she loves the baby and she loves Emmy. Emmy's like a daughter to her, a daughter of her heart now. And she
hmm
doesn't regret that, but she's always wanted to learn to read. So when the Cora Stewart in Rowan County began starting the Moonlight schools in the county where Callie lives, they were open to educate adults, and they called them Moonlight schools because she started them when the moon was full so that the people in the mountains would be able to find their way along the paths in the moonlight.
Hmm, nice. That sounds like an interesting story. Wow, very. I just wonder, where do you get your ideas for your female characters? Do you model them maybe after family members or women you've known?
I have at times with my books that I wrote, my Rosie Corner books, they were modeled after my mom's family. My mom had three sisters, and in the book, the character Kate has three sisters, sort of. And so I did model those after them, but normally I do not. Normally they're just a cross section, I guess, of everyone I've met. You pull out this from one person and that from
Mhm.
another person to make the characters that fit in your story.
Mm,
My mountain characters, I like to make them strong and resourceful. And with Callie, she has this strong sense of storytelling, which a lot of mountain people do. And she wanted to be able to write her stories down, to be able to keep them and not just have them verbally in her head. She wanted to have it on paper. So this has been a gift to her to be able to have go to the Moonlight School. And of course, she is in love with her neighbor that has been in a feud. The families have been in a feud for years. So there's complications there with them being able to find a way to have their families plus have their romance.
hmm And yes, I do love how your characters are so strong. They're strong women, very resilient, very headstrong, but in a good way. They're very ambitious.
They're very, Callie is very as the same as Elena was in the pursuit of Elena Bradford. Callie is very loyal to her family. She's very family centered, as many mountain people are, very centered on family.
Mm.
And so I make that into my Appalachian stories that they do have that strong family feel. And I have a strong family feel, so somewhat
Mhm.
that can be modeled after my own experience.
Now, you've been writing a while now. Has your writing process changed through the years?
Somewhat. When I first started writing, I did a lot more pre-writing. I would do pages and pages of about the setting, the plot, the characters. And I still do some of that, but I don't do as much as I did when I started. Now I trust the story path a little more than I did at that time. I'm not a person that plots it all out. I'm not a plotter. I'm more of a writer that just puts fingers on the keyboards and follows the characters in my head as they take me down the story path. I do have ideas about what's going to happen, but as I'm writing, sometimes that changes. And sometimes I'll have a character I wasn't expecting to suddenly pop up and be an important character in the story, which is always fun when the right characters pop up anyway. So it's yeah, I think it's changed. You know, when you've written, I don't know, I've probably written 50 books in the past. Uh, you get either better or worn out. I don't know which.
Well, you have to adapt, to the changes that are happening around you. And so I'm always fascinated when I talk with authors who have as much experience as you do that. Yeah, sometimes you do have to change your writing process a little bit.
Well, of course, when I started writing many, many years ago, I was writing. Well, my first writing was in a wire-bound notebook when I was about 10 and 11. But when I started trying to write and maybe actually write something that somebody else would read, I wrote on a typewriter. So that's a whole different experience than word processing.
Yes, I
But
remember that too. When I did my first draft of my first story, it was in 1991, and my mom got me a typewriter. And I bought that paper that you could erase on, so you wouldn't have to use that paper mate stuff, the white stuff. And I remember thinking, wow, this is great. I wish I had this kind of paper in college, but I always had to use whiteout in college. So I remember as far back as that, my very first writing experience was on a typewriter. And then, yes, I remember Word Perfect came out, the word processors came out, and that was interesting.
yeah, but when I got my first computer, all I knew how to do was turn it on. And so
Yeah, same here.
I bought a book, DOS for Dummies, and that saved my life and my
Yeah,
sanity.
I remember that
They're much
too.
easier now.
Yes. We are so blessed, and I'm probably like you, where I sent out my books to publishers. I had to actually print them out and put them in an envelope and send them away with a hope and a prayer.
Yeah, and then sometimes they came back and landed on your doorstep, or maybe not yours, but on mine.
Yeah, they did. They did. It's much easier now to get the rejections. It just comes through email.
It's not any more fun, however.
That's true. Well, Anne, this has
But
been a delight. And listeners, you can, you know, find out what's coming up with Anne over at her website, annhgabhart.com. And you can sign up for her newsletter to keep up with what's going down on the farm with her and her writing life.
I love connecting with the readers, and nearly every time I send out a newsletter, I do make sure I have a book giveaway to give people a chance to sample my work if they haven't. It's always fun to talk with readers or to uh, talk with them on Facebook. I have a lot of reader friends that I haven't met yet, but they're out there on the internet, and I enjoy getting to know them that way. I have a Facebook page. I do Instagram. I post on a blog a couple of times a week. So
Yeah, that's
it's a
called,
this or that blog. It could be anything.
okay, it's called One Writer's Journal. Is that it?
Right. I
Wonderful.
used to write in a journal. That was my from the time I was a teenager. I've written in a journal, and then once I started doing this online blog, I've sort of fallen away from writing actually in my little notebook journal anymore. It's just all online now. how we change,
How we change. Life changes and we have to change too. Well, Anne, thank you so much for taking time out of your life on the farm to chat with us about your new book, The Pursuit of Elena Bradford. It's always such a pleasure to chat with you.
Well, thank you, Ruth. I'm glad you invited me over.
Oh, it's always such a treat to talk with Anne Gabhart about her projects. She goes through such extensive research and she comes up with these amazingly unique stories, doesn't she? And I love her characters. Her female characters are always so strong and resilient and overcoming such obstacles, whether by society or health obstacles, or family obstacles. She always makes them so resilient. And that gives us hope, as we're reading her stories. So I hope that you have been encouraged by Anne and her writing journey and her beautiful story, The Pursuit of Elena Bradford, which is available for pre-order right now. So make sure you go and take advantage of the deal at Baker, 40% off and free shipping. And also connect with Anne over at her website, annhgabhart.com, and sign up for her newsletter. And I thank you so much for joining me and listening to Anne's story here on A Writer's Day. My goal is to always make sure you aspiring authors out there are motivated to keep going on your writing journey. And those of you who are experienced authors, there are obstacles in our way for a reason, and it's to make us more resilient. So keep going, finish that book. And until next time, thanks for listening. God bless.